Ladies and gentlemen, in this RedGamingTed.com video we have some further information concerning Batman Arkham Origins, which is obviously being worked on by Warner Brothers in Montreal rather than Rocksteady. Now, despite the fact that they are not involved in the game, they have left a lasting mark, and of course Warner Brothers Montreal want to capture that as much as possible, and they're going to be using the same engine and so forth. However, we have a set of information of what they were originally going to include into Origins, and what WB Montreal are actually aiming for in the game, and some various details of the campaign, and even some bits and pieces to do with the actual design philosophy as well. So anyway, let's talk about one of the things that they originally were going to add in, but then they didn't. There was an actual HUD indicator that was for a storm. Now, the idea behind this is that Batman Arkham Origins takes place during snowstorms, and the purpose of this was to give you an idea when there was going to be massive gusts of wind that would obviously drive the snow into your eyes and to blind enemies as well. And the purpose of this was to give you, as a player, the ability to sneak up from the snowy shadows and, dispatch justice. However, they started to take it out because they felt that it broke the flow of combat for a couple of reasons. Obviously, first of all, it was a major advantage to the player, in theory. However, it also meant that the actual AI was quite simply blinded most of the time, and they were just helpless. So obviously, if you were using detective mode, it was too much of an advantage. Secondly, if you weren't, you would pretty much be completely and utterly blind to what was going on. So in other words, all you were doing was just swinging about wildly, hoping for the best. And that obviously isn't really the best way to add atmosphere into the game. So they removed that. Now, Arkham Origins is the story behind how the unrefined, rough around the edges, early career Batman became the menacing Dark Knight. And consequently, as early rumours indicated, there will be quite a few characters that Batman will be meeting for the first time, and one of which will be Captain Gordon, obviously well before he came Commissioner Gordon. One of the senior producer should I say, said there were elements in the story that are never discussed before the game is actually shipped. Now, what about Batman himself, about the moves and the abilities and so forth? Well, in terms of the moves and the gadgets and so on, Batman actually has them. And indeed, the problem isn't that he doesn't have the technology, it's the fact that he hasn't actually faced the enemy. Now, it's a simple fact of, if you fought Batman's biggest enemies, for example, Joker and Two-Face and Catwoman and various other career criminals, you know roughly how to take them on. The problem is, he hasn't at this point. So in other words, he's rough around the edges, he's completely green. Arkham City Batman is therefore described as Batman 5.0. On the other hand, Arkham Origins Batman is 0.9. Now, in terms of gameplay, if you've played Arkham City and you liked it, that's great, because apparently it plays pretty much exactly the same. That would mean, I'd imagine that would mean button layout and controls generally. Everything will be exactly the same, which is absolutely fantastic, because to be honest with you, Arkham City plays absolutely awesomely. I don't really have any problems at all with the controls. There were occasionally a bit of a buggy camera angles, but other than that, I don't really consider that a massively negative stroke against the game or anything like that. Now, apparently, speaking of cut features, there was yet another one that was removed. And this one is an enemy quad-rotor drone that would patrol rooms in search of Batman. The drone broke the richness of the Predator room, which was giving the player the ability to move however they wanted. In other words, it was just pretty much there, just getting in the way. And obviously one of the purposes of playing as Batman in these games is to give you the ability to actually challenge situations in the way that you want. This is actually very similar to even Metal Gear Solid 4 in that respect. It's a good philosophy. Give the player the tools. If they want to go in the brute force approach, they can. If they want to lay a series of traps, they can. If they want to come out from the shadows, they can. It's completely up to you how you play the game. That's why if you were to play it and then I was to play it, we most likely would die in completely different areas. And of course challenge ourselves in many different ways, and it's absolutely fantastic because that means you can actually set yourselves multiple challenges as you're playing through the game. Indeed, occasionally I would actually let myself get killed because I would deliberately want to get past a room without being spotted, just as a little mini challenge to myself. What about other bits and pieces to do with the gadgets and so on? Well, detective mode itself has been overhauled. They haven't really gone into details about specifically what they've done. In my opinion, one of the problems with Batman Arkham games in the past is detective mode has been a bit too good. And despite the fact that it's very powerful and the game looks quite ugly in it, although it does have some neat features, you can almost be going between them 50-50, which in my opinion is kind of a ruin to the artwork. But also on top of that, there's going to be a change to the way the gadget upgrades work as well. So in other words, the leveling tree, if you will. Legends of the Dark Knight was apparently the most inspirational piece of media for the game. And the enemies themselves, the goons, will also take advantage of the layout of the new Gotham City. So don't expect them to just be standing there letting you beat on them. Apparently the idea behind this as well is they want to make Batman very scary. They want to make him a threat to the villains as much as the villains are to Batman. Speaking of villains, WB Montreal believes that he is, and I quote, make the coolest version of Deathstroke. He's a wonderful counterpart to Batman. And that, of course, is very important in these games. The hero is only as good as the villain he's up against. The northern area of Gotham is what became Arkham City. And it's going to be low-rent residential areas and industrial areas as well. You can almost imagine it as apparently Brooklyn of Gotham. So there has to be a counterpart of that, and there is indeed. The southern area is going to be described as Soho, or East Village of the city, and apparently this brand new upmarket area, borderline financial districts of the city, and focuses on tall buildings, catwalks, and walkways. By the way, what about the police in the game? Well, unfortunately, the Gotham City Police Department are completely and utterly corrupt. So if you come up and face a SWAT team, they're going to want to kill you, which is not exactly ideal. Now, speaking of other villains, what about the Joker? He's obviously been in the previous two Batman games. Well, there's been absolutely no mention of the Joker as yet. As a very slight aside, and I don't know exactly how much stock to put into this, if you actually go to IMDb and you check the voice actors, Nolan North is going to be providing the voice for Oswald Copperpot / the Penguin and Black Mask. So it seems that the Penguin's definitely going to be in there by the same dude, actually. Tom Kane is going to play as Commissioner Gordon, and Martin Jarvis is going to be Alfred. That's just a little tidbit for you. Anyway, and finally there's going to be a Most Wanted mechanic. Now, this offers a selection of mini-campaign side stories centered around other major villains. Once again, those have not been mentioned as yet. So anyway, there is certainly a lot of information there for us to start pondering over. I have to admit, I think Arkham Origins is going to be one of my most eagerly anticipated games. Actually, it's not even. I think it is probably the most eagerly anticipated game for me, aside from maybe one or two of the next generation games. Obviously, we're not sure if this is coming out on PS4 / next generation Xbox. I really wouldn't be surprised if it were, however. Anyway, regardless, I think that's just about it for this particular video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I will see you soon. Take care, and bye for now.